Hello everybody and welcome back to the 5-Pin channel. Today we're going to talk about tournaments and how to be efficient. When I say efficiency in bowling tournaments, what I really mean here is how to make the most out of your experience. Some tournaments are only 3 games long, some are marathons where you're bowling 20, 30 games in a week, sometimes more than that. And I think the key thing is to take something away from each experience that will help you be better down the road. So I guess first and foremost, first tip that I would say is make the most of your warm-up before the tournament starts. I know it's a nice time to kind of like go around and see people that you haven't seen in a while and just kind of talk shop or whatever and see how everyone's doing. But in a lot of tournaments you get a decent amount of time for warm-up. So I would just recommend make the most of it. If you're bowling in a smaller tournament field, I definitely recommend, if you've got the time to not just practice on the pair that you're starting the tournament in. A lot of these tournaments you're moving from set to set after each game. So check out some of the lanes. One real good tip that I would give you is if you know what your lane draw is going to be and you know that you're going to be on like the high side of the center, and then the next game you'll be moving to the low side of the center. Go throw a bunch of warm-up shots on the high side, and then immediately go down to the other side of the bowling center and throw some shots. See if there's any difference there. A lot of the times you'll find that from one end of the building to the other, the conditions are a little different. And if you can kind of better prepare yourself ahead of time for when the balls that you throw actually mean something, you're just going to be better off in the long run. Another good little tip that I would give you is, give a good lay of the land and see what tournament or what league boards, maybe are posted on the wall. If you know a bunch of people that are bowling in that bowling center, on a weekly basis, see how they're bowling there and maybe get in a good idea. Like, are hard throwers doing a better job scoring there, on a weekly basis, or is it more of a finesse type of thing? These are valuable little tips that you can give yourself just to make, give you a better chance at success. Now, I'm not guaranteeing success by doing any of these things for sure. You still got to go out and throw the shots. But if you can kind of give yourself a little bit of an advantage or a little more knowledge, I just think you'll be better off. While you're bowling the tournament, I guess like my number one tip for while you're bowling is just stick to your game plan. Don't let your emotions get the best of you. It's so easy to make a couple bad shots or get a couple bad breaks, and one or two bad shots turns into 1 or 2 bad frames, which turns into a bad game, which turns into a couple bad games, which turns into a bad day. And the most successful bowlers, when they're struggling, are able to turn it around quicker. And I think a lot of the times they don't let the emotion get the best of them. While saying that as well, don't let the emotions get the best of you when you're bowling well too. Everybody is familiar with the jinx of throwing a really big game and having the really bad game after that. And a lot of the time that I think that is partly because you're just a little too amped up. So just keep yourself in mind. Keep your emotions in check and just keep mind of what your adrenaline is like. If you're a little bit fired up and you have a tendency to throw too hard or go too fast, if you throw a really big game and in the next game it looks like it's going in a really bad direction, that could be it. Just, take a little bit off your ball, take a little extra time and relax and just, set yourself a good pace. And I guess with that too, I think you really need to pay attention to what your body's telling you. If you're bowling in a tournament that have a lot of games, and I mean, everybody always says bowling is, you're not expelling a whole lot of energy, but you really are. And if you're bowling in a tournament where you could be bowling, 10 games in a day, 15, 20 games in a day, you're going to get tired both physically and mentally. And I think you just need to be aware of what your body is doing at the time. As you get into, maybe some of the last couple games and you find that you have a tendency to kind of fizzle out if you're bowling good. You're probably getting a little bit tired, and you need to be mindful of that. Something that I can now speak on that I neglected for many years is make sure you're hydrated and you're having a few snacks in between games, so that you keep that energy level up and you keep yourself going in a good direction. So now I really kind of want to focus on the end of the tournament, when things are finished. And good or bad, there are valuable lessons to be learned. And I found that for myself, if I can take something positive even out of the most negative seeming tournament that I've bowled, they're not all losses. Sometimes there's a little bit of victory in the defeat. And how I've started doing that in the past couple of years, and I found it to be very successful, is I wait at least 24 hours, and then I ask myself 3 questions. Now, 24 hours I feel like is important, at least 24 hours before you present yourself these questions to answer, because you want to take the emotion out of your answers. And a lot of the time, if you've bowled really bad, you're not going to find anything worthwhile saying about your performance. And if you bowl really good, it's just so easy to say, oh, everything went perfect. And not everything's going to go perfect. So here are the 3 questions. So number 1, I always ask myself, what did I do well? Now, if the tournament really went really well and say like I won or maybe finished second, third, whatever, yeah, that's an easy question to answer. The tournaments that I really struggle, it's a little bit harder to answer, but I also feel like it's more valuable. If I absolutely, tank in a tournament, and I can find a couple things that I did really well, one that gives me a little extra confidence going into maybe my next tournament, or if I'm going to go to league that following week. But it kind of tells myself that not everything went wrong. Like I said, I do think it's very valuable to find some victory in your defeats. Question number 2, and I feel like it needs to be phrased in this particular way, at least for myself. What could I have done better? Now, I think it's important to ask yourself the question that way instead of what did I do wrong? And the reason why I say that is I think positive affirmation is very important here. If you answer the question, what did I do wrong? It's kind of like quicksand, like you're presenting things that really sucked. The things that if you answer the question, what I could have done better, you're kind of putting a positive spin on it. Like if I made a bad adjustment and maybe I started throwing it too hard, my answer to that question would be, I need to remember just to keep a good pace when I'm kind of in crunch time. If I answer that question, I went too fast, there's kind of like that negative connotation to it, and I don't think it's as beneficial to you in the long run. Now, the third question, very important as well, is what did I learn? And I found that the tournaments that I bowled really well, that answer was harder to answer. Sometimes it was pretty straightforward. But if I bowled really bad and I took the time to answer the first 2 questions, that third question sometimes rings pretty hard. And it tells me, maybe what I need to do to improve my game. And I'll tell you, if what I could have done better is repetitive, and I know that, say I've bowled 5 tournaments recently, in the last 3 of those tournaments, what I could have done better was the same answer. What I learned is that I have a hole in my game, and I need to really address that and put a little extra focus and attention on it. So I think that's important. The other thing that I would say in retrospect for tournaments in your performance is don't dwell on the past. If you've had a failure recent, it can follow you around like a black cloud, and confidence in this game is very important, and not everybody's confident all the time. But if you can kind of mask some of your lack of confidence and failures in recent time, and give yourself, even if it's false confidence, to think that you're going to do better than you really think you will. I think that's important. Like, in any sports, if a previous performance continues to haunt you, nothing good's going to come from it. So if you've had a bad game at a bad time, or you needed to throw a strike in the 10th frame and you didn't do it, yeah, you know what, it happens, and don't dwell on it. It's not as big of a deal as you think it is. The one thing that I've learned over my years is that it's true that you are your own worst critic or biggest critic, but some of your failures that you deem big, or they create some sort of reputation that you fail, that's only in your own mind. And like, kind of putting a spin on it, that it's going to sound kind of in a negative sense in just the human race in general, but everybody's so worried about what they have going on, they don't really care what you have going on for the most part. So if you failed at something, if you're bowling that tournament, the following years, 2 years later, they're not going to remember it. The only person that's really going to remember it and have it affect them is you. So, I think that that's something that's very important to be learned. That's something that I really had to learn, over my years of bowling, where, I absolutely blew the joint out in a certain bowling center. And, I thought it was absolutely devastating to find out that, it really wasn't all that big deal. I always tell the story, and I think it's funny to those who know me that probably have never heard this story before, or I guess maybe not so much a story, a thought. They would kind of find some irony in it, just with the way that I bowl. But I've told a lot of people this, and I truly believe this. If you're in the 10th frame of the biggest tournament of your life, and you have to throw the strike on the last ball to win. Now, let's start with you throwing the strike. Now, you throw the strike. It's great, not life-changing, really. If you think about it in retrospect, what has it changed in your course of life other than some personal satisfaction? You know what I mean? Like, I've never won a tournament where I became a millionaire, or became a celebrity, or obtained a big mansion. If you throw that strike and you immediately walk outside the bowling center, and say the bowling center is on a corner street with a stoplight, and there's somebody standing on the corner, and you walk up to them and say, "Hey, I threw the strike to win." What are they going to say? They're going to say, "Get away from me, you freak. I don't care." They don't care. They really don't care. And going the flip side of things for that, if you didn't throw the strike, what happens in your life? I've never not thrown the strike and lost my job, became bankrupt or homeless. It's never happened. So if you don't throw that strike, is it really that big of a deal? Because you get so caught up in the moment, you think it's such a big thing, but it's not. It's really not. You walk to that same person on the street corner and tell them, "Hey, I need to throw the strike and I punched the head pin." What are they going to say? They'll say the exact same thing. They're going to tell you to get lost. They don't care. It's not the end of the world for you. You know what I mean? Like, to put it in kind of, I guess, a funny perspective for someone who's, spending time doing YouTube, and, obviously bowling is a huge part of my life, but it's a dumb game. You throw a ball down wooden planks, and you knock down plastic sticks with rubber bands on them. In the grand scope of the world, you know what I mean? Like, it's not a big deal. It's kind of silly, really. Like, I always say, it's kind of a dumb game. Like, there is no world impact in your success or failure. So keep that in mind while you're bowling, because you kind of put so much pressure on yourself to succeed in a moment you feel is, you kind of deem it as life or death, and it's not really. It's just a game that we're supposed to be having fun with. And I guess in closing, if I could say like one tip above all to help you with tournaments, whether you want to get into your first tournament or something you've been doing for years and you just kind of want to find another level of success, is just take the time to appreciate the quest. You know what I mean? Like I've said this to quite a few people. Like, I'm 44 now. Like, I don't know how many years I have left being relevant on the lanes. So every tournament now is a tournament closer to me not playing the sport anymore. And I just think that for myself, I spend a lot of time. I mean, I'm a perfectionist, so I'm very hard on myself. I tend to take some enjoyment out of the game for myself because I want it to be perfect all the time. And, I know that in closing out my career, when things are done, I'm probably going to wish I spent more time just enjoying the experience overall. So if that's the one thing that I could tell you to kind of get the most out of your tournament experiences, just enjoy the ride. Like you're putting a lot of time and effort into competing, and the sport has, I mean, man, I've met 1,000 great people in bowling, and I wouldn't have met them otherwise. So, take the time to appreciate the journey, and it's not always about the result in the end. And like I said, if you're bowling in a tournament and you feel like it's do or die, just stop and think about it. It's not really do or die. It's about going out there and enjoying yourself. So this tournament, or this vlog will be posted, I believe, probably Saturday night, and the following morning. Speaking of tournaments, I have my last qualifying set for the Open here in Newfoundland. So keep an eye out for that video coming up. Obviously, we're gonna start recording that tomorrow. And hopefully it all goes well. But like I said, if it doesn't, not the end of the world for me. I can go to bed at night knowing that I gave everything 110%, like I always do. And if it wasn't good enough, then it wasn't good enough. And that's just the way that it needs to be looked at. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope maybe you learned something from it, or there is something that you can take from whatever advice I can give you. If you have any suggestions for me of future content, or any comments of what we talked about today, don't be afraid to send me a message, leave a comment, and definitely subscribe. Like I said before in previous videos, if I see that people are subscribing or commenting and there's a little bit of interaction, that kind of motivates me a little more to do more videos like this. Like I said before, it's not really in my comfort level, I guess you could say. I do have some fun ideas coming up in the near future for some other vlogs. After the tournament vlog, I'm gonna do another kind of like, I don't know what I call it, a technical vlog. It'd be more, I guess, sports psychology maybe. But then I want to do some fun stuff. I do have some shorts idea as well that I should be posting up. So anyway, give this a like and subscribe, and until the next video, good luck and good bowling.